And we are live once again with another episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by the one and only Anthony Migliarino. What's up, brother?
What's going on, Zach?
You
How we
don't
doing?
realize something. Every time I do this, I'm always like, it's the one and only. Bro, you're one of a kind. A one of one, Mr. Migliarino. I hype you up, and you just say, hey, what's up, man? So I'm just man, and you're the one of a kind. I'm not starting
Yes.
to notice how this relationship is rolling.
Yeah, man. You are
Hey,
the word.
so
You are the wordsmith. I'm just here for appearance.
Hey, you got the looks, I got the voice, let's go. And tonight, speaking of the voice, we're talking about allowing your children to speak for themselves. We had a discussion recently, and in it, you had mentioned that you were speaking to my son when he came for a visit, and you were speaking to my wife, and you were speaking to my daughter. And one of the things that you said in another video that'll be dropping in the near future, make sure you're subscribed, you said, you let them speak for themselves. You didn't tell me the things that I was asking them. You let them come up with an answer. And I realized in that little moment, you highlighted something that's a huge problem. Parents are answering for their kids because they're afraid of what the kid might say. And that might be the truth. What they say might be the exact thing you need to hear. But if you're not a father allowing your kid to voice their opinion, what are they? They're a controlled little pawn. They'll never flex that muscle and feel confident enough to maybe say something that they disagree with. And we all know where that leads when you don't stand up for yourself and you just go with the flow. So we're going to address that tonight. But I wanted to start with the genesis so everybody can understand kind of where we're coming at it from this. This happened live. It's happened in my home. And it was really cool for me to see play out because, again, I was just pumped to have the family meeting you. But more
Yeah.
importantly than that, you were able to see and kind of test the theories we're always talking about. Hey, can I talk to his kids? Will they speak? Let me see how the house works. You see the things that we constantly speak about in action. Like our routine didn't stop because you showed up. My family was up and going and doing things, and it
Yeah.
was cool for you to be a
Absolutely.
part of that.
Well, you know what, man? They say the truth hurts sometimes, right? And in those moments, talking to your son, we didn't need you, right? You didn't have to be there.
I'll
Which
take that. I'll
sounds
take that as a compliment.
absolutely, man. No, but I would say that walking into your home, I can automatically tell that you are a father who encourages your kids to speak up. It's evident, it's there. It showed itself to me. And I don't like, I mean, I don't like to intimidate children. I don't like to come off as harsh or even overbearing. So I like to ask questions. I like to have kids talk to me. I think it's a unique thing that we miss as parents and as adults. I think coming from a position, top down position, and always thinking that you have to engage the conversation or you have to know what to say. Kids are amazing, man. If you just let them speak, if you let them share their world with you, it's fascinating to me. So, uh, that said, I did enjoy talking to your kids, man. It was a good time. They are remarkable with just the thought process, how they put words together, how they speak, how they carry themselves. Definitely got a lot of it from the mom. I can tell.
I'm working on the intensity as they come up. We're going to increase that. They are very kind and welcoming. I'm like, you got to stop that. I need aggression. I need focus and intensity at all times. I got to get Phil in here. Hey man, we need a
Uh,
training session on the stare. What's this guy doing in our house?
no, but it is. It's an important, it's important subject, right? Like you said, a lot of fathers, a lot of parents, but especially fathers, they don't understand what they're doing. They're not even aware of it, right? They're ignorant to it, and a lot of times you talk to somebody's child and the parents will immediately interject, right? Mother and father. They'll be like, oh, he does this, or he's going there, or this is his activities. And it's a little bit disheartening, but it's also a signal that there's trouble, right? That you're over controlling, that you're parenting through fear. There's something that might happen that you don't have control of if you let your child speak up. And that terrifies some parents, right? Because, like you said, you might find out the truth. And not that you're going to expose yourself, but in a way you will, right? You might find out things that you didn't know before, right? You might find out that your kid doesn't like doing that activity after school, or they might not like the vibe or the environment of the family dinners. Once you allow your kid to speak up openly, there's things that you're going to have to change because now you have a equal person in the home expressing what's going on.
We constantly talk about the need for parents to assess themselves objectively. And I really like the way that you pitched it. And it was something that I immediately applied once I stumbled across your work. You said, ask your kids how you're doing. And I was like, man, as much as I've been pushing on the front of family and fatherhood and being a great man and husband and leader, I always looked at how they were performing. And this is two discussions as well. Like, are they doing well in school? Are they happy as people? Are they comfortable speaking up? I was looking at those as metrics of, all right, this is how I'm doing as a dad, which are good metrics. But I never like directly asked the question to the child, hey, is there anything I could do more of? Is there anything I could do less of? These are now normal conversations we have. Hey, how you guys doing? Is there anything mom and I could do better? How could we better help you out with the things you're going through? And sometimes they'll tell us. What I love about my kids is they maybe it's a product of parenting and the personalities combined. They will say what the thing is. They were like, I don't like this. I like this. And you have to like not hide the emotion, but you're like, damn, like straight up, you didn't like my steak? And you're like, oh no, your dinner was not very good. I'm like, oh, I slaved away on that, but okay, thanks for letting me know. I always do that. But that's for everything. They will tell me, like, I loved it, I hate it. And it's not to hurt. They're almost caught off guard if you kind of joke with them, be like, oh, you don't like my cooking? They're like, oh, are you upset by that? I thought you wanted an honest answer. I could lie to you. And I was like, no, I'm just kidding. You guys are good. Like, we're rocking that way. But when I started doing that, I got better answers, which helps me be a better father. And so when you're saying, don't speak for your kids, that's another way for them to tell you the truth. So in the same way you would say, how can I be a better father? If you let your kids speak, you'll hear things that you'll be like, shit, that I really wish he hadn't said that. Not because it's embarrassing to me, but because I'm failing at that point and I didn't even realize it. It's like, I think the example we were talking about was baseball. It's like, if you ask my kid, he had tried out for the middle school team, how you doing baseball? And he's like, I hate it. My dad makes me play. If he said that to you, I'd be like, oh shit, I need to really reevaluate how we're approaching this. And that goes for anything. They're like, hey, how's your day going? I'm fine. Why doesn't your kid tell you the truth? Why won't they say, hey, I faced this thing, or hey, my hard time with that? Because you've beaten that out of them. You've either made it the point, you made it clear to them that it doesn't matter what they say, or on the flip side, what they say doesn't matter. You're not going to change, you're not going to assist. And so I see both of those things as somewhat complementary. Letting your kids speak is as important as asking your kids how you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, we should definitely want to have our kids be genuine. And, we want our kids to say the truth, even if it's going to be hurtful or even if it's going to be something we don't want to hear. I mean, how many relationships have you heard of where people aren't honest and things get ugly, man? There's resentment that builds up. There's behaviors that are created, and they're almost like childish behaviors, right? There's a level of immaturity for not being able to say the truth, not being able to tell people what's on your mind. And, that is conditioned in childhood. So I think the more that we can advocate for our kids to speak up, to have a voice, to understand that, what, they might not always say the right thing, but we want to hear what they have to say. And I think that's a big part of individuality. That's a big part of growth. One thing that I share with my kids often is when I'm afraid to speak up, right? When things might be a little bit out of my comfort zone. I shared with them the story of how nervous I was to get on stage in Vegas. I didn't put on a front like, yeah, I got it. Everything was cool. I was dialed in. I was locked in. It was easy. I was like, man, I was scared. First time doing it, but there was no way.
We had a little prep talk that morning, didn't we?
I did. Yeah, I woke you up.
That was good. It was good.
But first time doing it, I'm not going to back down. I'm gonna lean into it, do the best I can, and that's the mentality I share with my kids. Right? If I can share my experiences with them, I become an advocate, right? A self advocate of what I want to see within them. So not only am I telling them what, not telling them, but not only am I sharing what they should do, I'm sharing the exact experiences that I went through, right? When there are moments I feel like I shouldn't say something to another father who's going through a tough time, I turn those filters off, man. I sometimes I have to let dads know what I'm thinking. They might not want to hear it, but again, usually a high percentage of the time, it's gonna help. It's gonna help solve a problem. So that's the stance I take, man. I really want my kids to express who they are openly, in not. It doesn't always have to be in a confident way,
Mhm.
but in an honest way. I think honesty is more important. The confidence comes later.
And I think that's a key point because again, we can't ask our kids to do things we're not willing to do. They follow our example, not our advice. You've heard it 1,000 times. You've been subscribed to this channel, and if you're not subscribed to this channel, you haven't heard 1,000 times, and that's your first time. You should subscribe. And you'll hear it again every single week as you continue through your life, because it's that important. You know. And so by saying that, like, hey, I was nervous, but I did this. I take a similar approach, be it writing, speaking, the move to North Carolina. I was talking, I was like, yeah, we have a lot of things going on. Your mom and I, we don't have all the answers, but we're together and we're going to be happy. We're going to make it work. And they see that when I become an adult, when your child's thinking, when I become an adult, I'm still going to have challenges. I'm still going to have to go outside my comfort zone. All the things we say we want our kids to do. But here's the thing. When you want your child to do something, you then have to allow them to go and do it. If you say, I want my kid to make choices for himself and not be bullied by the government or a bully literally in school, and then they're like, well, I want to go do this. No, I don't want to do this. No, you're going to go do this because that's what I want you to do. You're not, your message is not aligned with your values or your hopes. You're hoping for one thing, but you're acting in a way that's going to give you a different conclusion. The result of your behaviors is what matters. Your behavior, the thing you do. It's acting on verba. There's another one for you. It's the mantra of the family alpha. It's deeds, not words. Your words, I love my kid more than anything. I want them to be independent. Then give them independence through your behaviors. With you sharing about going on that stage, when your kid has to give a presentation or they've got to do public speaking or something and they're nervous, they also can say to you, I'm nervous, but that's okay. I'm going to overcome that, just like my dad did. He was nervous too. But if you're like, oh, I crushed it, it's easy for me. That's what I tell my kids. Yeah, I just walked up there and I just yelled, and then they changed their lives, and it was great.
It's literally what you do, though.
And that's what my kids are gonna do. No, but I tell them when I struggle in other areas, But it's when you share these things, it goes against everything we've been taught. You're not supposed to feel. You're not supposed to have any failures or any weakness, and that paints a perfect picture in front of your kids. My dad's perfect. He doesn't struggle ever. I have to be like him. Oh, I'm nervous to go on stage. I'm such a fucking failure. And they sit there and they beat themselves up for something that happened to you too, but you never showed them that. And so I think that a huge part of this, when we're talking about allowing your kids to speak, it goes so far beyond them saying something that'll make you nervous. These are life skills. This being able to speak up for themselves and have a friend come over and speak to them without you jumping on them and saying, no, he likes this. He wants that. Here's the answer to your question. He doesn't speak though, he's mute. Like it's never, ever gonna help your child become and actualize their best selves. Ever. You're stunting their growth actively. And if you want to be better, you've got to change that habit. And so I guess that's where I can throw you away from what's next. For men who have the habit of wanting to control, they have the habit of answering for the kid. How do you start to break that? And we always say that if nature has a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum, what do you replace it with?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say, you really have to be aware of what's going on. So if you want to break that cycle, if you do want your kids to have that freedom, that's ultimately what you're suppressing. I would say that one key thing with me that helped with my kids is I had to start noticing that I was doing all the talking. Right, that was critical because how could I advocate or how could I express to my kids I want them to speak up if every time we spoke it was me doing all the talking? So once I changed that, I learned how to listen better. And when you learn how to listen, you actually can ask questions. And those questions are what you get your kids to talk. So a lot of parents will ask the repetitive, mundane, right? Like, oh, how was your day? How was school? And they'll get this from everybody. They'll get them from the mom and dad, from the grandparents, from the aunts and the uncles. Everybody will ask them basic questions. And for me, it's a signal that like nobody really cares. It's almost like they just want to get it out of the way so they don't have to talk to the children anymore. Children are almost a nuisance. So I would start there, start listening more, start noticing that you are doing all the talking, and minimize that. Allow your kids to participate in the conversation. The other thing that was key, and it's not so much things that I did in my home, but we've spoken about this before. It's the language that we use. If you're telling your kids that, if you're saying, don't be shy, right? Speak up, have a voice, be bold. And that's constantly what they hear. You're really diminishing what they're going through, right? You can't force it out of them. So I think encouragement is good. Um, it's good to actively listen, right? There's a term called active listening. And that's like pulling information out of your kid without you expressing your viewpoint, right? So if they're talking about something, you can actively listen, and you're a lot of the times you're repeating back what they say, right? So they're like, oh, I had a hard time at school. And you're like, oh, all right. So there was something difficult at school you had to deal with. And that opens up the child's brain. So they know that you're listening, right? They say, hey, dad's really taking interest. So I'm going to continue on the conversation. We've all had conversations with people like this before, where you're face to face and you're talking, and they're not listening to you, right? They're just waiting to say something, and it's annoying. Those are kids. Those are the adult versions of the kids who were never listened to, the kids who never got to speak. And now it's just like anxiety ridden. It's complete over the top, just hysteria, emotional. Please listen to me, kind of personality.
And it goes against the tradition though. And that's what I love about what we do is it goes in spite of everything that's been passed down. I don't live in a world where I'm telling my kids to sit down, be quiet, and go in the corner, because that's what a good kid is. I'm going to have my kids at the table. You're going to sit and speak to them. And when I say that, I'm talking to like the adult. My kids expect you to speak to them like adults. They expect that level of respect because that's what they receive daily. And if you go in there and you're like, hey, little buddy, my son's going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm 12 years old. You say that to my daughter, like, oh, hey. She's like, hi, how are you? Like, why are we doing this? My kids aren't going to live in perpetual, I want to say adolescence, but they're not even at that level. But you see a lot of the people who don't grow up, they're either coddled and sheltered because they're babies, or they're outright ignored. And they never develop these things where maturity comes with it. My daughter is 9. My son is 12. They're kids. They have kids' minds. They're at that kid level of development. But because of the language and the tone we use, and that's something that, we did a whole video on, so check that out. But when you go in here, we have a certain tone, expectation, and standard that we normally operate off of. And when someone comes into the home, so you came to visit, it changes a little because they're going to learn, how fast do you talk? What topics do you bring up? What's your rate of speech and kind of method of, your rhythm? And they kind of feel that out, like, oh, cool. And they do that, the verbal dance with you. Let's talk about your thing. Let's do this. Let's have a discussion. And they'll sit there and they'll roll with it. And you're teaching them, that's just another skill set. We train them in the home. Here's how we speak to each other. Here's how you speak to adults. Here's how you allow someone to speak to you. But you're a stranger coming in. And so they had no baseline to operate off of, except that you were my friend. All right, dad vetted him. This is a cool dude. I'll open up to him. But then when you're talking and going, it was awesome to see them comfortably have a discussion. And when you threw out the questions, like the jabs, they took them. They saw how to roll with it because they're used to people talking to them about real life things. You didn't say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Did you play with some blocks today? You're absolutely, hey, what's going on with life? What are you doing this? And he's like, oh, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm going there. And you're right. I wasn't needed. And the same thing, your daughter's like interrogated. What kind of things you doing this? How's the podcast going? And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of rolling with it. But then I flipped it and started asking them questions. What would you do? And what would you think if I asked you this? And it was awesome because they gave a shit. You've taught them and you've raised them to the point where they were listening to me. And when I said my response, they thought about it and they pivoted on what I said and not what they wanted to say. And so we had a great discussion. There are some homes where you can sit and try to speak to a kid and he doesn't know how to speak to you because he doesn't have anyone speaking to them like that. And if we want our children to grow and to not just survive, but thrive, we have to eventually let go of the reins. Let them flex those muscles. Let them talk to you. Let them talk to people. Allow them to share their voice, which is the whole point of this discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what, man? I listening to you say all that, and it's cool, right? Because like you were when I was at your house, you were looking from the outside in, and the same thing at my house. I was looking at you interact with my kids, and I probably don't tell them enough, but I am truly amazed, man, of the things that come out of their mouth, the conversations that we have, and not just we do have some in depth, real conversation, but just the way that they think about things, right? How they process their thoughts and they share them with me. It's amazing, man. It really it's astonishing for me to just be like, yeah, those are my kids, right? This is how we communicate. And I'll tell you what brings a lot of sadness to my heart is sometimes they tell me stories about what their friends go through, and it's painful, man. And I have to explain to them how the majority of the world works, right? That most kids are getting hit, most kids are punished, they're threatened, they're manipulated, and the parents don't know any better, right? Because the parents have their own shit that they've never dealt with. Um, and something that drives me crazy. This is unrelated to speaking with my kids, but there's so many dads who bang on the drums of life is hard, right? The world is going to kick your ass, and I got to prepare my kids. I got to be hard on my kids. But when you don't let your kids speak up and you speak for them, that's exactly what you're doing. You're giving them an easy life. You're making life easy for them because you're not letting them be present. You're not letting them speak up. You're not letting them interact with other people, and you're controlling them. So it's complete hypocrisy, right? You're exactly doing to your kids what you don't want the world to do. It's fucking insanity. So that's a wake up call to the fathers out there that are doing that. Man, give your kids some clout. Let them speak, and don't be worried about what they're gonna say. Right? It's most of the time, even if it is offensive or even if it's not appropriate, life goes on, man. Tomorrow is a new day, and you can laugh about it, right? You can make jokes, and we have a lot of that in my house. When my son is around the in-laws and other adults, the grandparents, he becomes a comedian, man.
Mm.
And we talk about it to this day, right? We're like, oh, remember on Christmas when Aunt was doing this to Grandpa, and it's a blast. It's funny. In the moment, I'm like, oh man, what did you just do? But no, it's cool, man. You got to enjoy it.
And that you bring up a great point. How many men are thinking about you can't do this, don't do that, don't. If you want them to develop life skills, it's not just about beating their failures out of them. It's not about hurting them every time they make a mistake. That's not teaching them how to flex that muscle. Instead of being a drill instructor, which a lot of people take as if you're raising soldiers, relate it more to being a spotter. They've got to lift the weight, and you're kind of there to just, if it starts to slip, put your fingers under it and just help them get it up. You're more of a spotter than a drill instructor. They've got to do the work. They've got to do the lift. To me, watching my kids interact and have that conversation with you or the adults that come through, like we're running a freaking system here. There's not many adults coming through my house, man. I don't know why that even popped in my head. I guess when I see them speak to the other coaches with my son, the way they speak to their teachers, the other adults in their life, that's them lifting weights. That's a social interaction where, again, a child, 12 and 9, has to speak to a full-grown adult and try to operate on their level and be able to handle whatever questions are tossed their way. They're learning that skill set. And the older they get, the more tools they'll have because the more experiences they'll have. Just like lifting. Your squat goes up, your deadlift goes up, the more reps you put in. If you want your kids to truly be strong for this hard world, like you're saying, you would allow them to do more. You would allow your kids to be more independent because that's them going into the world, putting in the reps, having the world kick their ass. They come back to you. You help build them back up. They go back out to the world, try again, and now they're stronger. There's going to come a point where my kid's going to say something and get caught off guard and be challenged on it. Like, oh, well, you said this, but you did that. oh shoot, and they're gonna have to figure. All of us do it. We all make mistakes. We all kind of double speak sometimes, and we got to really land what did you mean with what you said? They'll learn that lesson, but they have to learn that lesson. It's not me to shield them from that. And the same thing as to what you were saying, with those dads. If you really want them to be strong to handle a hard world, put them in those difficult positions. It's easier for me to say, hey, Coda, you love this, you like this. Anthony, any question you have for him, run it through me. That's easy. He doesn't have to do anything. Like you said, you made it easy for him. But if I'm like, hey, talk to the kid, you guys chat away. I'm going to sit here and play with the microphone. I'm going to go over here and get ready for the videos we're about to record. You do you. And then you come back, Coda's going to be like, damn, that dude talks a lot. I'm like, imagine being his kid. You say I talk a lot.
That's messed
but
up.
It's good, dude. It's that makes them stronger. And so it's funny how the kids not getting hit and having to speak are stronger than the kids who are getting the shit kicked out of them. Now, you may not appear that way because the ones getting the shit kicked out of them are angrier. So they come across with that faux bravado. They're just pissed off at the world. When in all reality, they're the weaker individual.
Yeah. No, and they are. I mean, think about youth sports, right? I know I
literally just came from practice, so this is a great topic.
No, but think about the boy on the field who his dad's in the stands, not a coach, just a spectator. And instead of the kid focusing on the game, on what he should do, the dad yells something and he's staring up, waiting for orders from the dad. Even though there's a coach on the field, even though there's a game going on, they're still looking for that direction and that instruction from dad or even from mom. To believe it or not, moms are worse than dads in the stands sometimes.
I believe it.
I've been sitting in the stands for probably over 10 years now with my son. Same thing with my girls, right? With sports, they play dance. But that's that child that you're making so insecure, so unsure of themselves, right? That they always have to look for you for guidance, which sounds weird, right? Because we talk about how you have to guide your kids and lead them. But it's the exact opposite of real guidance, of genuine leadership, right? What you're doing is instilling fear in your kid and making them uncertain. So a lot of what we talk about is when your kids depend on you, when they're at those ages where they need you for everything, that's when you have to give them your all, right? That's when you have to, every need that they have, that is your job to meet as a father, right? Whether they're hungry, they're tired, they're cranky, and that can be up to, age 4 or 5, right? You have to pour into it. You have to give your kid your all. This way, when they become a little bit older, when they're 10 years old or they start becoming teenagers, because you've built that dependence, right? That strong connection, that healthy attachment when they were younger. Now they can say, hey, dad's taught me this. Dad took the time to explain this. I'm going to go try it on my own. And they might look back a few times at you to see, what your emotion is. And it's just go, right? Go ahead. You give them the wave. Yep, you got this. Or you even give them a head nod. And to me, that's confidence, right? There's a lot of kids who doubt themselves because they were never allowed to speak up, right? The parents not only controlled everything they did, but they controlled the thoughts in their head. They instilled so much fear, so much anxiety, so much uncertainty that the child was afraid to even express what was going on inside their mind. That is to me, that's, now that I'm saying it out loud, that is a pretty bad form of abuse.
And it does go this deep. We get comments every now and then like, why do you guys care so much about X? How many dads are sitting down right now having the discussion that we're having right now on allowing your children to speak, allowing your children to find their voice? Not many. And that's exactly why we're talking about it, because it's everything matters. I don't know how else to stress this. Everything you do in your home matters, and you should be intentional about it. And you're not going to know everything. I don't know everything still, but I'm learning as I go. And then when I hear somebody like Anthony say, hey, it was cool talking to your son. I like that you didn't have to answer for him. That was just a passing comment in the middle of a much bigger discussion, but that stuck out. I was like, that's a good thing to talk about because that's not as common as it should be. And here's a great real life example, not only of the role youth sports play, as well as being a coach, allowing you to have access to kids you wouldn't normally have, but to the grander scheme, what you're talking about with how deep this runs. You know, I was having some of the kids hit off the tee, and every time they would hit it, they would look up at me. And I was like, listen to me. I'm not going to sit here and critique your every single movement. You have just hit the ball. And if you think you did something wrong or you were late, I was like, I'm not going to tell you. Not this time. I was like, you do it. I want you to fix yourself. At the end, I'll give you a few tips, and then we'll do one more round. You apply those. And then, again, I'm not going to say anything. You already heard what I had to say. You make your minor adjustments. And it blew their mind. They were just waiting for critique after every single thing they did. I'm like, guys, I'm not that coach. You're 12 years old. I don't need to do this. This isn't T-ball where I got to teach you like where to put your feet. You know where to do these things. And, I'll go over it once, explain it. They'll do it. And after a few things, I'm like, hey, you're doing really well and everything, but just try this. And that might be my only critique I'll practice. But I'll notice it. I'll try it. Whether it's hand positioning, feet, it doesn't matter. What matters is they're starting to stop looking at me. They're not looking up for immediate critique, immediate evaluation, immediate, addressing them. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? Not everything has to be assessed in that manner, but they are so used to that from teachers, from parents, from other coaches. There was a game we had where a kid swung at a high strike three. He would have been walked, and a parent yells, the scouts are here. The scouts are looking for you. Something about scouts being around. And I'm like, this is like 10U baseball. Like, what are we doing here? And, it wasn't scouts. It was for the AAU team the kid was trying out for. And a guy was there. But the dad's just like screaming. I'm like, bro, do you think that helps what just happened? Are you thinking about what you're even saying to your kid? And so beyond allowing your kid to speak for themselves, not coming down to them about every single damn thing they're doing, let them live. And if they fail, let them fail. Let them make their mistakes. A small confident building boost is different. If your kid's a pitcher, he goes out there. My kid pitches, so you don't go and like pick your leg up higher, pull your hand back further, throw it harder in the middle of a freaking game. It's not time. It's, hey bud, you're doing well. Even if he's getting his ass kicked and they're hitting him all over the place and he's just doing terrible. Hey bud, next pitch. That's not the time to critique. And when you have your child out there at a birthday party and adult speaks to your kid and you'd want to jump on them, if they ask your kid, how was your baseball game? You shouldn't be like, oh, he got rocked. He was horrible pitching and all these things. They weren't fucking talking to you. They were talking to him. Now's the time to shut the fuck up and let him speak for himself or her speak for herself. They want to talk when they shouldn't talk. And then they won't say that positive thing or build them up when they should. We've got communication so backwards with children. It's insane. And again, like you were saying, now that I'm speaking this out loud, I'm seeing how fucked up communication is between other parents and children. Speak to your kids. Like, just speak to them like normal human beings. I would never speak for you. If somebody's talking to you, I'd be like, all right. I'd look at you and I'd let you answer a fucking question. And I'd look at the question person and be like, hey, what's up? It's not my job to speak for this man.
Could you
Why
imagine?
Is it for my kids?
Could you imagine if we treated women that way, right? If you always had to speak for your woman, right? If she didn't have a voice. And listen, I'm not, I'm there's different elements to that, right? But
if we're out to eat, I might be like, she'll have this, she'll have that. Let's not. There's gonna be one asshole who finds that exception.
Yeah, but even if like somebody inappropriately touches her or whatever, somewhere you're at, somebody bumps into her, yeah, now you're speaking up for your wife. Absolutely. But it's crazy if you think about, we don't, there's a lot of things that we do to adults that we do to children that we don't do to adults. Could you imagine always critiquing one of your friends or even your spouse, right? Your wife, always pointing out what they did wrong, what they need to do better, always, right? That was your interaction with them. Or the other side of that is, could you imagine if you were always, fluffing them up and telling them, oh, don't worry, you did a great job. But this is how we talk to kids, right? This is what kids constantly get from us. And then as they get a little bit older and they start to develop a more of a critical thinking stance, and they start to question the way that they're parented or how they're raised or how we interact with them, no wonder they shut off. No wonder they stop talking to the parents. There's a lot of there's a lot of fathers I speak to who say their kids don't talk to them, right? And they're like, I try to engage them. And my answer is always try harder, right? Keep trying. Don't ever give up, right? If you have no relationship with your child where you guys are having conversations, don't give up. Keep leaning in. Keep trying to improve in that, because you can't rely on the child to fix the relationship. It's not up to them. They're not going to one day say, "Hey, you know what? I need to be the adult in this relationship, and I need to fix it." And I need to, go talk to my parents. Very rare, it might happen, but usually never. So again, the topic, the discussion is about letting your kids speak up, letting your kids have a voice. Um, to be fully aware of that, to really understand that there is an important element to it, right? Your kids really need to express who they are. They need to have preferences. And I say this a lot. If any relationship you're in, if you don't have a voice, if you can't speak up, it's not real. It's not a relationship. You're not there. What children tend to do, this is nice guy stuff. This is, alter egos, split personalities. This is the false self versus the true self. Kids will identify what's going on. They'll see how you're treating them, and they will create a different persona, a different personality to show the parents that they want to see. And it will go on for years, maybe decades. And then those are the adults, these grown children grow up and they don't know who they are. They don't know what their mission is. They don't know what their purpose is. They're usually depressed. They have anxiety about the future because they're uncertain about who they are and where they're going to go. So these are the people that we're creating. And I know it sounds simple, right? It's just let your kids speak up, let them speak what's on your mind. But it's real, man. It has a real effect in society. It has a real effect on how your child's going to grow up and who they're going to become.
Yeah, I don't think it's overblown at all. I mean, honestly, I think this is an under-discussed element that needs more emphasis. And I'm realizing that as we're having the discussion, like live right now, I'm realizing this is something we're gonna have to circle back on and address in a different way again, because there are several elements here. And one is what you just said. It's not once or twice you do this. It's every single day. If you have made this your default behavior as a parent, you do it all the time and don't even notice it. And if you didn't know better, you're here now. It shouldn't happen again. Catch yourself. Focus on it. Like, oh shit, I'm talking too much again. Like, slow it down. And it's not about not speaking, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it's about not correcting. So it's 15 minutes from the field to my house. Sometimes it's dead silent. Sometimes I'm talking. Sometimes my son's talking. Today, my son was talking the whole 15 minutes. There were multiple times throughout the conversation I thought, well, I would have done it this way. You should have done it. Like, I didn't say any of them. I just listened to him talk. And he had a lot of story. He wasn't even looking for me feedback. He just wanted to tell me some things. And so similar to when I'm talking with my wife, sometimes she's just telling me things just to talk to me about something. She just wants to tell me, hey, I did this. I saw this. I was a part of this, or I struggled with this. And not for me to be like, oh, well, here's how you should do it. Here's how you should fix it. Here's literally what you did wrong in every aspect of this. And here's how I would have done it because I'm better than you. That's an approach a lot of people take, a lot of husbands take. And so when you're saying about that constant critique, as men who want to fix things, we have to be very careful about this. You might be doing the wrong thing, trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to help him. I'm trying to help her. You would help them more by allowing them to exist and be able to speak to you freely without the follow-on feedback. Now, there's time for discussion. It's a difficult line to walk right here. I'm not saying go mute. You have to know, you have to be situationally aware. You've got to understand people and just understand communication to know when it's time to be quiet, when it's time to speak up. But it should be obvious. You should know if somebody's looking for feedback. They want you to, like, that's when they get quiet. Like, hey, what do you think? Okay, here's what I think about this. And you tell them the truth. You don't sugarcoat anything. Like, here's the truth. Here's how I feel about the thing you're asking about. Or you're quiet. But I think a lot of men miss that because they don't have good communication skills. They're too caught up in their head, and they're thinking about them, what they're going through. And when you go through this, when you start to develop this, you become a better person as well. You get better at listening. You understand that, hey, look at my kid being able to speak to me about these things now. Those dads who say they have a hard time, I feel for them because you don't want your kid to not talk to you. You're trying to be a good dad. You know, and I guarantee fucking any dad Twitter, FOE man, anybody that you and I are going to be going and visiting or seeing at some point, and they're watching this fucking video, I swear to God, if they if they don't change some shit at their house, you know we're going to be talking to the kids. And if you jump in this, I'm going to just, what's the URL? I'm going to get a business card, scan this, go watch that damn video.
We're going to be live streaming in your home.
Yeah, coming at you live from the living room. This kid's not allowed to talk. Where's the dad? You know, you're on the spot. But it's one of those things, man, where I think even the best of men might be doing this and not even realize it. And it's not like, hey, here's a brick, you know, we're going to shit on you. But you got to be aware. You got to objectively assess. Are you the guy we're talking about right now? The only way to know is to just look at yourself honestly and be like, fuck. Yeah, you're talking to me. And then you fix it. And I've had that moment several times with you, man. I'm like, oh, shit.
I have that moment every day, bro.
It catches, and dude, it's just, nobody's perfect. But I guess the bottom line that I really wanted from that takeaway is that you're not beyond hope. And you're an asshole if you just keep doing it.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, right? You have to know your blind spots. You have to be willing to address your weakness in order to become better. I mean, that's every
and
element.
What's the way you find those weaknesses?
What's the way you find them?
You speak to other dads. You speak to dudes about this.
Watch Oak and Rock.
You watch Oak and Rock, yeah.
We're real good at pointing out the weaknesses.
Fathers need fathers, man.
Yeah, and no, honestly, man, that's why we're good at pointing out the weaknesses in parenting, right, in fatherhood, is because we had to deal with it already. We had to work through it, right? When we saw something that did not align with our values, we didn't just keep moving forward. We were like, hey, wait a minute, let's put the brakes on. Let's address this. Let me examine it. Let me see what I'm doing wrong so I can become a better father. And that's how you get growth. That's how things get better. You know, when we hide from things, especially things that are difficult, that's when they turn out really bad, right? That's when the pressure builds. And then when your child is really in a bad spot, that's when you're going to get all of it, right? That's when the explosion happens. That's when it's heated. It's better to chip away at things, right? To take small steps forward and figure out how to deal with the problem in a mature in a more mature manner. But I did want to say, going back to those car rides with the kids, because my kids are like this too. And there are some car rides, man, that I hear stuff that I feel so blessed to just be in that car and be a part of. Right? There's some rides are silent, you know, like if I pick my son up from lacrosse and he's beat up, we just drive home, put on some music, done. And I get it. Then there's other moments where he just won't stop talking. He wants to tell me about everything, about the team, about what happened in school, about what his friend did. And it's just pouring out. And a lot of times, man, I just sit back and I'm like, wow, how do I tap into this, right? How do I get this to be the norm? And then I think about, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be the norm, right? Maybe that is a special moment that I just need to enjoy and be present in that moment. So, you know, and I just brought it up because it's happened with all of my kids. This has been going on for 23 years since they were able to speak. And even my wife went through this, right? There were times where she was like, I don't know what to say to our son, right? He's 12 years old. That's the worst
place to be.
Yeah, he's 12 years old.
The quiet car rides, quiet meals, quiet like moments. And in your head, it's just like a fucking like highway. You're flying down. You're like, what should I say? What's the right thing? Should I bring it up? Should I not say anything? What should I talk about this? No, that's too much. Like, and you're going through like, I should do something. I love my kids so much, but what's the right thing to say? All right, I'm going to shut up. And you're just like this.
Yeah, no, for real. But and I think that's to a degree that's, you know, that's kind of cool that as a parent you would care that much, right? You would care. I don't see any weakness in that. There's nothing wrong with it. I think that's how people who care about you, how they should be thinking, right? I want everybody in my life to think that way, to care about, hey, you know, what is Anthony going through right now, right? Do I want to make sure that he's enjoying my company? Do I want to make sure that he's having a good time? And also, do I want to make sure that I'm telling him the truth? You know, going back to the truth thing. But it is those moments, man, that are truly remarkable, right? There's little signals, there's little bits and pieces that we get about our life that show us how things are going, right? There's these little things that pop up that happen, and they might seem insignificant, right? If we in the moment might not even notice them, but when you have a chance to look back at them, you can see them for what they are, right? There are these little magic moments that happen throughout the course of our life. We might live for 80, 90 years, maybe 100. And it's these seconds to me that matter the most, right? These instant moments. And I mean, honestly, it's even, we've recorded hours and hours and hours of videos of content. And it's those split second moments where we mess up or where things go crazy that, like, those are the things I remember the most, right? It's the fuck ups that I remember.
If you haven't seen today's video, check it out and see if you can spot the fuck up. I'm sure you can. This one is pretty intense. But no, you bring up a great point, man. And I was thinking as you were saying that about how when you flex that muscle and your kids develop it, your spouse develops it, you develop it, you're able to be more open and honest because you're more comfortable in your ability to defend your positions. And so when I walked into your kitchen, I was there for seconds. And we were talking about business, we were talking about health, we were talking about food, we were talking about hobbies, and they were asking me like, "Hey, well, with Oak and Rock, what are you guys thinking about for the podcast for this?" And then I was like, "Hey, well, what are you doing for advertising for your cookies like that? Like, what's your approach there?" And then I think it was your wife. She was talking to me about Jackie's food allergies. And I was talking to her about her cakes, and just the dynamic there of all the different subjects. Some of them very taboo. We were talking about parenting. We were talking about, our health, like intimate, like where are we doing well, where are we failing? We're just going back and forth on what's working, what's not working. Some people would be so uncomfortable to share those details because they never get to talk about it. So they're not comfortable talking about it. So they never develop those muscles, But when you do that, I was able to learn so much and just connect so much because I was in an environment where the expectation is that you were open and honest and just truthful on whatever subject was coming up. And it just really, like, if you want a home where people feel comfortable and if you want a family that everybody is united in, you need to have that skill set. You need to be able to go into an environment that is conducive to that type of connection. If your home is walking on eggshells and you bring somebody from the outside in, you're not going to be able to fix that like an hour before that person gets there. You're not gonna be like, all right, guys, we're happy, we're doing great. It's a joke, but at the same time, how many people live like that? They live like shit, but somebody comes over, they want to clean up, or they're mean to their kids, but somebody shows up like, hey, wear nice clothes and come give me a hug. We're so happy to be like, these exist, and it's not just a trope. It's not just an extreme characterization of a certain type of class of people. It's literally parents who are way too busy to make their kids a priority, who realize they're going to be judged by the relationship with their kids, with certain individuals. And so they want to change it to make themselves appear good instead of actually just actualizing connection, unity, and just a togetherness of the family.
Yeah, man, it's living a complete lie, right? It's just being in a constant state of falsehood, not really addressing what's going on. And I think I'm thinking about there were moments with my kids, especially my son, right? There's no judgment in my house. And that's what I was thinking about when you were explaining your story, Zac. So when there's no judgment, the kids can act freely, right? They can speak up, they can say what they want. And there have been people who have been around me and my son, and they know what I do, right? They know that I'm the peaceful father and I talk about parenting. And they'll be around us and they'll say, I thought your dad and your brother liked each other. Because we have that open conversation, right? We can joke with each other. We can, bust each other's balls. I'm not going to get mad at him. I'm not going to be like, oh, you don't talk to me that way. And it is a level of respect, right? Because I respect him, he respects me. So we're, it's cool to see, right? He is open enough where he can joke with me. He can make fun of me. And I'm not talking about like in a harsh way or, being an asshole.
Nothing cruel.
Yeah, nothing cruel. It's all good humor. It's all in
Yeah.
good intent. But it's just funny because people will be like, I thought you guys liked each other. And it's a similar thing to with a lot of my friends, right? If I'm with my friends and we're out somewhere and people will be like, are you guys friends?
Dude, I literally have to run damage control at the events we go to. I'm like, don't listen to Anthony. He's not. They're like, does he hate me? No, just don't listen to anything he says. You'll be fine.
No, but I mean, imagine having that level of being comfortable with somebody, right? Where you can freely and openly just speak your mind, right? And that's the relationship you want to have with your kids. You don't want to, and again, like you said, it's not about being cruel. It's not about trying to hurt people's feelings. It's the freedom to express what goes on in your mind. It's the freedom to express and crack jokes, right? Say something funny. Why not have a laugh? Why not enjoy the conversation? And then the most important part of it is it's the freedom to talk deeply, to have deep conversations, to be able to get emotional with people, to be able to be intimate and tell people where you need help, where your weaknesses are. I mean, I don't do that to this day, right? I'm 44 and I will never let that wall down. I still got my guard up. But I hope that my kids can be better than me, right? I hope that they can learn how to empathize with themselves and open up to people and create good connections, man. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Of course.
All right. You know the dude who like uses the spoon and he gets his way out? That's me against your wall. I'm just using the spoon and I'm chipping away, man. And eventually I'm going to find my way to the $1 million that's under the tree in the fields. And that's going to be the center, the core of Anthony. But right now I got my spoon and I'm just hitting these bricks. I'm like, I'll get there.
I'm a product of my environment, bro.
That's a good thing.
That's
Man shit.
Yes, sir. But no, I do think you're right too, man. This is something that's overlooked a lot, overlooked often, and I think that the more attention that we could bring to it, it's only going to help fathers. It's only going to help parents get better and reconnect with their kids. Start seeing conversations with your children as like a gateway drug. Right, once you tap into it, man, it's dopamine, it's adrenaline, it's love, it's all these good feelings that are gonna really solidify and bring you pleasure to about being a parent.
And an important element of that too, and I hope that it's not being lost in this, is when they tell you something you don't want to hear, don't come down on that. That's the point of the discussion. Get to the point where they're comfortable telling you, hey, I was with this kid and he was trying to smoke a cigarette. Hey, I was with those kids and they tried some alcohol. Okay. They're talking to you. If you like, you did what? You're going to crush the thing that you're seeking, which is open connection. They're not going to tell you things anymore. So you've got to be able to handle these hard discussions and just be like, all right, well, how did that go? Like, how did you feel? What was going through your mind? And that's when they realize you're actually listening to them and that door is open. They might say, I was nervous, I was scared we're going to get in trouble. And you can be like, oh, well, if you're in the situation, maybe next time you could make something up. Or if you ever text me, hey, I forgot my inhaler. My kids don't have asthma. So if they text me that, I know they're trying to be polite and say, hey, I'm going to call you. Hey, I need you to come home. That way they're not being a chicken. They're not going to lose the street cred, but they also have me to fall back and I'm like, hey, Dad, come get me. Or hey, get me out of the situation.
Code
But I
word,
mean, these
like
little
it.
things. So if you don't ever say that, you would never have the discussion to get you to the point of you're talking to your kid about how do you deal with uncomfortable situations? And it's going to happen. I'd rather my kid come home, and we've had this discussion. Hey, I was with this kid, he was smoking a joint and dropped me off, and I'm sorry, or like I didn't know what to do, like blah, blah. All right, man. It's cool. Like I get it. Things happen, and this is where we are, and this is the world we're in. You're going to see a lot of experiences like this. There's going to be a lot of situations where you're in a tough spot, and it's like it's a lose-lose no matter what you do. And then you just have the discussion like men, or with your daughter, like a man and a woman. Like I speak to my kids like on that level. I'm not going to like, how dare you? You brought shame on the family. Bro, what does that do? What does that really do? It makes you feel good in the moment, like some authority, like you're making a fucking change in the world. They're just going to go smoke the joint, drink the fucking booze, do their thing, not tell you, and either get caught by somebody else if something bad happens, or they're going to get by just fine. And guess what? In all those scenarios, they've stopped talking to you.
I tell my kids they're out of the will. That seems to work.
You're done. They're like, we know who your seed phrase.
No, I mean, I'll make one last point, and then we'll wrap it up. There's most of the men, I would say 99.9% of the men I know have fucked up in their life. They've made mistakes. They've done stupid things. It's almost a guarantee that your kids are going to do stupid things. And if you think otherwise, right, if you're that parent that thinks, oh, my kid is going to be perfect, right, I'm going to instill values in him. I'm going to have all these rules, and we're going to have this complete format of how things have to go, and they're going to abide by it. You're crazy. It's not going to happen. Kids are going to get in trouble. They're going to do stupid things. The biggest takeaway is you want your kids to be honest with you. You want them to know that you're not going to flip out, right? You understand that they'll make stupid mistakes. You understand that they might not do the best that they can in that moment. And to me, that's what matters the most, man. I would rather know that my kid worried about their life more, worried about if they were going to make it home that night, than if dad was going to be angry.
I mean, I would hope that every father would say the same. I mean, the priorities here is not that you look good or anything like that. It's that you have a good connection with your kids and you are good. This isn't about appearance. It's about the actualization of success and connection and unity within the home. But that doesn't happen if you don't give your children a voice, allowing them to share their voice with the world. It's incredibly important. It cannot be missed. I mean, especially if you watch this video, it starts today. It starts now. Tomorrow morning when you wake up with them, hey guys, you don't have to say anything. Just start letting them speak. And when it's their turn to talk, listening. Not speaking, not trying to answer for them, not trying to change their answer or tell them what they should say. Let them talk. Let them share their voice. Let them share their unique perspective. If you can do that, you'll have a better relationship with your children. If you improve your relationship with your children now, they will turn into better human beings later. This will be the first domino that falls and the great domino that drops, known as their fucking life. You can make that happen today, but it comes down to a choice, and I certainly hope you make it. This has been another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. That's Anthony. I'm Zac. Y'all have a great night.
Peace.